Καλησπέρα σε όλους, καλώς ήρθατε σε άλλη μια εκπομπή του Free Mic. Σήμερα το επεισόδιο θα είναι λίγο διαφορετικό από τις υπόλοιπες φορές. Because it will be the whole thing in English. First of all, I will not be the only one taking the interview. With me today I have Giannis Pultsίδης. Hi Giannis.
Hello, Andreas.
Nice for you to be here. I know,
nice.
for you. Nice to have you here.
It's very nice to be here.
Do you want to present our guest?
Today we're here in Athens, Greece with Uzay Bulut, a journalist from Turkey who recently discovered that she has Greek roots. Hello, Uzay.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me today. I'm very happy to be here with you to talk about my Greek roots and my journalism and everything else. I'm looking forward to it.
We have prepared a lot of questions for you. I hope you will answer everything. And we found your story very, very interesting. We have been talking behind the cameras. And I think most of the Greeks will be very interested in your story.
I hope so.
Stay tuned.
Grow up hearing a lot of stories about people that they live in today's Asia Minor, especially in the area of Pόντου. So we hear a lot of stories of those people that they discovered that they have Greek roots, that they keep the Greek language with a Pontic accent alive. A lot of people that they still practice Christianity in secret.
Yes.
So we're here. We heard your story, and we would be really interested to learn how your family managed to keep their identity alive through so many hardships.
Well, it's very interesting that one of my grandmothers, my grandmother on my father's side, spoke Greek. She was a Greek woman, and she was obviously a crypto-Christian because she prayed in Greek. But I didn't know about this until very recently. About 3 months ago, I learned this from a family member. I was telling my family about, the Greek class I was going to. I said, I'm trying to learn Greek. And then my dad started asking me questions. And he said, let me tell you a prayer. Let me tell you a prayer. That's what he said. I said, what prayer? And then he said a prayer in Greek. I don't know what it meant because it's in Pontic dialect.
You had never heard about it?
Yes. It was the first time in my life that I heard this. My dad speaking Greek, not only speaking, praying in Greek.
Yeah.
I was so shocked. And then I said, how do you know this prayer? And he said, that's how your grandmother prayed for her animals, for her cows, because my grandmother lived in our village and she had animals, she had cows, and she prayed for her animals in Greek. I was so shocked. I was pleasantly surprised, but I am at this stage of my life. My grandmother passed away several years ago, so I will never be able to ask her about her story, about her experiences, her faith. I will never be able to ask her to speak Greek to me. But now I know that she spoke Greek, and that was a major revelation to me. And then I told my parents, by the way, I did a DNA test. We are Greek, we don't have any Turkic DNA. We're just Pontic Greek. We carry the same.
Greek, yeah.
Yes, no, not pure. Nobody is pure something, but we are predominantly Greek, and we share the same DNA as Pontic Greeks. So, and then I told them, now I know why my grandmother spoke Greek. And my grandmother, I loved her so much, and she was so beautiful. She had the most beautiful blue eyes. I wish she was alive, and I wish I could speak to her. But just knowing this makes my work and my journalism and my advocacy for Hellenism even more meaningful in my mind to me.
Have you ever heard your grandmother praying in Greek?
Never. I had
Never?
no idea. I grew up with her. We went to our village every summer when I was a child, when I was growing up. And she lived in the village, and our houses were very close to each other. I never heard her speak in Greek. She never shared. I don't remember her speaking Greek. But obviously she taught a little prayer to my dad when he was a child. And my dad still remembers the prayer, although he is now in his 70s. And I find that fascinating.
Of course, after all these years.
All these years, yes.
Do you think she was afraid to
Yes.
speak Greek?
Yes, to speak Greek.
And another thing, in your village, how many people
Well,
do
it's
they
just-
know, or do they ask themselves if they have the same ancestry than you? like you?
Well, I am sure that there were many crypto-Christians in my grandparents' generation. But again, they were scared of the regime, of society, to share their, story with us, to practice their religion in public. So in public, they pretended to be Muslim. I don't know how many of them knew Greek, but our village is a mountainous village. So I guess they stayed there for centuries, isolated.
Yeah.
So they preserved their Greekness and ethnic identity and ancestral identity.
How many Turks do you believe that have Greek DNA?
I think millions of us do have. Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to know the exact number, but if you look at history, in the 11th century, in 1071, when Turks from Central Asia came to Anatolia, which was then part of the Byzantine Empire, and they invaded Asia Minor, and then they slowly took over. There was first a major massacre of particularly Armenians in Manzikert, which was a predominantly Armenian town. Yes. And there's a researcher, a very brilliant researcher, Raymond Ibrahim. He calls it the first Armenian genocide in history. So there was a massacre, but then after Turks took over, they did not kill everyone. And I mean,
they enslaved them, you mean?
They assimilated them. People had to convert. They first became, especially after the Ottoman Empire was established and Constantinople fell, Christians and Jews became dhimmis, which means semi-slaves, like, a second-class subjects of the Ottoman Empire, of an Islamic state. So they were exposed to a lot of discrimination, persecution. There were rules that shaped every aspect of their lives. There was so much pressure on them. So
they
many
had a
of
choice
them,
to make.
Yeah, I mean,
either
it was
die
like
or live like Turks.
Yeah, or convert to Islam, or be a dhimmi but pay a very high tax called jizya and be a second-class citizen. That must have been a very difficult life. And according to historians who studies and researches the concept of dhimmitude, this, dhimmi status, they all say that. They have documented it very well. So millions of us throughout centuries, of course, this didn't happen overnight, but they had to convert to Islam. This is something a lot of Turks today, Turkish citizens, don't understand. When you change your religion, your ethnicity remains the same. Your ethnic identity doesn't change. Your religion changes. Your ethnicity remains the same. So we became Muslim Greeks. Our Hellenism, our Greekness remained the same. So that's why I believe that there are millions of us who have Greek ancestry, Greek DNA in different degrees. Not everyone has the same, I'm sure, Greek DNA, but I can say that just by looking at the mirror, I want Turkish citizens to look into a mirror and see that they don't look like Mongolians or Turks from Central Asia.
They're completely different,
They look like
more
Greeks.
Western.
They look like Armenians. So we are much more Greek than we are Turkic.
You have written, I think, that even Erdogan comes from a region with Greek roots.
Yes, he comes from a former Greek village, Potamia, in Rize. These are Greek areas,
of course.
For sure. And there are a lot of allegations calling him, saying that he's Greek. But, he made a public statement. He said, they call me Greek and they call me even worse things. They call me an Armenian. So
he considers calling him an Armenian even
worse. Yes,
worse.
A terrible thing, an insult. And then he said, I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he publicly acknowledged having some Georgian roots. But here's the problem. When these Turkish nationalists or Islamists talk about the so-called multiculturalism of Anatolia, they refer to Georgians, they refer to Circassian, Cherkess people, Arabs, Kurds, Georgians, but no, they don't recognize Greeks, they don't recognize Armenians, okay? So, but it's such a stigma. It's, there's so much hatred that they have for Greeks, which is very ironic.
Is it hatred or fear?
I think both. And combined with Islamization, it's also a lot of brainwashing because, now Islam is their main identity. But And they see Greeks just as the Christian people. They don't understand, the pressures that were applied on Greeks and Armenians and other non-Muslims to make them convert to Islam. Maybe they just think that, Muslims went to these non-Muslim peoples, they knocked on their doors and they said, we have a new religion, would you like to, accept it? But that's not how Islamization occurred. They were forced to become Muslim. It was a tyrannical process. It was their survival option.
Yeah.
Actually, they didn't have an option. The only options were either become a Muslim or become a second-class subject or just die.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a very dehumanizing process. We need to understand it. If they understand that, I believe that they can start honoring these people more, accept them, and respecting them more.
What was the treatment you received when you announced to your circle that you have Greek DNA?
Well, I announced it on Twitter, and it went viral. I received mostly negative reactions from Turks. It's so funny. When I was all these years writing articles defending Greeks, like writing about Cyprus or the Greek genocide in Asia Minor or the pogrom in Constantinople in 1955. And I was always on the side of Greeks because truth is on the side of Greeks. And those Turks, the Turkish nationalists, always said, oh, change your name. You're not Turkish. Because my short bio was, Uzay Bulut is a Turkish journalist, formerly based in Ankara. And now they always said, you are not Turkish. We don't recognize you as a Turk. Change your name. That's a real Turk would never write these things. Then years later, I announced on Twitter that, yes, I did a DNA test and I have the same DNA as Pontic Greeks. Now they are saying, no, you're a Turk.
They didn't want to lose you.
Exactly. No, and they're saying Pontians are Turks too. What do you mean? Like, we are everything. We are.
It's not accurate on any level. This.
Yeah, I mean, it makes no sense. It's completely illogical. Like in the past, you said they always told me you're not a real Turk. You're a traitor. Now they are saying you're a Turk. No, your DNA is wrong. It's wrong. So I mean, there is no understanding or dialogue with these, many of them, not all of them, but so many of them, because
they are nationalists.
And it's like they don't use their common sense or logic. They are deeply brainwashed, full of hate, full of bias against Greeks.
Listen, the Turks had enslaved Greece for 400 years.
Yeah.
It's not easy for them to accept that even after 400 years, Greeks are pure and Turks are Greeks. This hasn't happened anywhere else.
That the Hellenism stayed alive.
Yeah.
Stayed alive through so many hardships.
And went in the Middle East almost.
Yes, and by hating Greeks, they're hating themselves. So it's actually self-hatred. And by killing Greeks, they are killing their own people. By violating those churches, they're actually violating the religious heritage of their own ancestors. By occupying almost half of Cyprus, they're occupying and violating Greek territory when they themselves are Greek. So, of course, even if you are Mongolian, even if you are Turkic from Central Asia, you need to be able to distinguish between what's right, what's wrong, what's moral, what's not moral. Like, you don't have to be Greek or Armenian. But if you are Greek or if you're Armenian or if you're Assyrian, but if you are committing those atrocities, or if you're staying silent when all these atrocities are being committed in the name of Turkishness on your behalf, that's so tragic. That's wrong. That's why I always emphasize the ancestry and the DNA of Turkish citizens. So all these crimes have been committed against Greeks. All these Greeks have been murdered by Muslim Greeks, Muslim Armenians, Islamized Anatolians. And that's a tragedy. And we need to understand how this happened throughout history.
Is it a taboo to talk about this in Pontus? Is it a taboo to talk about being Greek or being of Greek roots to someone that comes or lives today in Pontus?
Or even dangerous, if it's dangerous?
I think it's dangerous because when I was there growing up, I don't remember anyone talking about being Greek or being Christian. There were no Christians around me. Like, it was such a taboo. Even today, there's only one active church, which is a Catholic church. There is not a single Orthodox church in the Pontian city where I was born and raised. So why is that? Why does the Turkish state not allow even a single Orthodox church to operate in Pontus? It's fear, it's hatred, and it's completely unjust. But there are still Greeks, Pontians, Turkified Pontians who speak Greek. I know some of them. They still live there, especially the older generation.
Yeah.
But Christianity, no, because after the genocide, there was one requirement for these people to be able to stay in Turkey.
To convert to Islam.
Be Muslim, yeah. If you're a Christian, you can't stay. You have to leave. So unfortunately, they either converted to Islam or they pretended to convert.
And they speak Greek publicly or in their homes secretly?
Or between them, of course.
Yeah, in their families, in their homes, yes. Unfortunately, you know what? If Turkey was a civilized state with an open mind, and if they truly honor civilization, they would teach us Greek at schools. From primary school, teach us Greek, it's this denial of truth, this Turkish supremacy, Turkish nationalism, when they are not even Turks, that erased the world's greatest civilization, which is the Greek civilization. So, but this has to change. We have to change it. We have to address these issues in public, hoping that things will change for the better in the future.
What was growing up the perception that they had in Pontus for the Greeks? Was it okay? Were they seen as friends or as foes?
Well, when I was growing up in Turkey, Kemalist governments were in charge. So we received a completely Kemalist education, Kemalist, secular, nationalist. And of course, Greeks in our schools, in our textbooks, particularly when the genocide, of course, they don't call it the genocide, but that period, the war, the Turkish War of Independence was discussed in textbooks. Greeks were portrayed as criminals, or they established some communities or organizations that were committing crimes, that were killing people. They were troublemakers, and they were unlawful,
to
people,
both Greeks and Turks,
to
etc.
both, yes,
like in
yes,
Cyprus.
yes.
Yeah.
And then Turks
read that.
had to act in self-defense. Turks had to stop them. Yes, they were relocated. There was some violence, but it was initiated by the Greeks. So Greeks and Armenians were portrayed as the perpetrators at the time. Now, today, it's even worse. I checked some of the chapters in Turkish history, textbooks, are the Armenian genocide. Oh my God, the way they described that event, the Armenians were perpetrators. They were criminals. They were murderers. They actually attempted to commit genocide against Turks. Turks had to stop them. So Turks were innocent. Turks acted in self-defense. So they completely changed the whole history.
The Turks are heroes.
Yes, they are heroes. They are innocent. They are
They're
victims. They are victims. It was the Greeks and Armenians who were criminals and murderers. So when I was growing up too, but it was shorter, in our textbooks, but that was what was taught us. So there, for example, the high school where I went to in Pontus, it was it's still open, and it is still the city's best high school. But before the genocide, it was a Greek school, and it was, again, the best high school of Pontus. So obviously, during the genocide, all the students and teachers were either massacred or deported. And then it was converted into a Turkish school. I went to that school for 3 years. We were never told about the history of the school. At least honor those who built that building.
So it was Greek before it was converted to
Yes, it
Turkish
was a
school?
beautiful Greek school, the best Pontian Greek school in Pontus. They made it a Turkish school. After the genocide, I went to that high school. But when I was a student there, I had no idea that it was a Greek school. Then years later, when I started learning about the genocide and everything, I think I saw a post on Facebook, and I checked. I said, so I went to a Greek school. This is so wrong. If you are using the Greek cultural heritage, okay, schools, buildings, churches, whatever.
At least mention it.
Mention it, honor the builders,
Yeah.
right? Respect, show some respect to them. No, It's complete denial and erasure.
This is the exact opposite thing that's happening here in Greece. Over there in Turkey, and although I'm Greek, I agree with this tactic up to a point that the Turks try to enhance their nationalism.
But it's wrong, especially...
I know it's wrong, but this is what they have to do to make the Turkish people have a national instinct. I can understand it up to a point, of course. But here in Greece, the opposite is happening. We destroy our history. All our books are getting less and less accurate and more democratic. We don't have to write that the Turk is a bad person.
Yeah.
We have to make him a hero also.
We talked about this before, and I find it so shocking and infuriating.
Imagine that in the North Greece.
Are we in Greece or in Turkey?
Exactly.
I mean, in Turkey, yes, our textbooks completely change all the facts about the genocide because there's a narrative, there's a worldview that they want to impose on Turkish citizens. Here, you're Greek, many of you are survivors of that genocide, and you came here, now you have a smaller country because you have lost so many lands.
Exactly.
And in your textbooks, you are maybe trying to minimize what happened in the genocide. It was just a war maybe, and, Turks, they were not so bad, and there was a war, and there was... No, please. I mean, whatever happened, do the research properly. And this is a fact. The genocide is an internationally recognized fact. Even the International Association of Genocide Scholars recognized the fact that what happened in Asia Minor between 1914 and 1923 was genocide. Write that down in your books. Teach it to your students. It doesn't mean hatred. Learning the true history isn't about hatred.
We have become leftists now.
We
are all leftists.
Globalist, you're just... But when you're globalist, when you try to... That's historical revisionism too, because it's not truthful. That's not what happened.
Of course not.
So the one side, Turkey, is becoming more and more supremacist, aggressive in its tone and rhetoric, and they're changing history just to create their own narrative, and the whole thing, if you ask me, I mean, the policy of the Turkish state is completely anti-Greek. I think that's the foundation of the Turkish state. Yeah. The founding ideology, the founding philosophy of the Turkish state is anti-Hellenism. But here, when I look at this, you're telling me our books don't want to mention the genocide that much. They're trying to sugarcoat what happened. It is so wrong. This is the path to self-destruction for Greece.
You know what's happening in Thrace right now, right?
Yes, I've seen a lot of reports in the Greek media, and I've also seen reports in the Turkish media and on the official website of the Turkish Foreign Ministry, because that's the foreign policy of the Turkish state, to Turkify the Muslims in Western Thrace region. Look, this happened in Constantinople. According to the Lausanne Treaty, the Greeks of Constantinople were supposed to be protected. But what happened there? In 1955, a horrible, savage pogrom happened, and Greeks and Armenians and Jews of Constantinople were attacked by Turkish mobs, and slowly they all had to leave because there was a lot of discrimination and pressure against them, and these are all well documented by human rights organizations, including the Human Rights Watch. I mean, the Human Rights Watch had prepared a wonderful report about this, documenting all the pressures against the Greeks at the time, including Greek schools, Greek teachers, Greek students, principals, neighbors. For example, the Human Rights Watch in 1991 went to Constantinople to write this report, and they wanted to speak with Greeks. So many Greeks in Constantinople didn't have the courage to open their doors and speak with representatives of the Human Rights Watch because they were scared of the Turkish state.
Of course.
So the Turkish state destroyed the Hellenism of Constantinople, and during the genocide, Eastern Thrace was the first region targeted by Turks. The genocide began there, targeting Greeks and Armenians of Eastern Thrace. So today, Hellenism is physically erased or dead. It's not dead, it's alive in us, it's in our DNA, it's in our souls, but we have to reconnect with it. But a lot of people are just in denial or unaware, and that's a different story. But when we look at Hellenism, like the people who spoke Greek, people who were Orthodox Christians, people who were, the descendants of the Byzantine Empire, they've been eliminated. So now, as if this wasn't enough, Turkey is trying to Turkify the Muslims. And those people are Greek. Some of them are Pomaks. Some of them are maybe of, different ethnicities, but many of them, most are Greek. They converted to Islam, just like us, Anatolian people. So they are equal members and citizens of Greece. They have full human rights. But what is Turkey trying to do? They're using their Turkish consulate there, infiltrating in Turkish communities, teaching them Turkish, buying their houses, buying the lands there, and slowly Turkifying and radicalizing. Also, Islamically, they're radicalizing the population in their mosques and at their schools. This is a national security threat to Greece. I mean, these people, of course, they should be treated with respect. We recognize their religious freedom. You do. The Greek state does recognize their rights. But Turkey has an agenda there to Turkify them, to Islamize them, and to conquer that region. And that is an extremely alarming national security threat.
The crazy part is, especially with the Pomaks that live in the region of Thrace, their mother tongue isn't even Turkish. It's Pomak language.
Pomak, yes.
And the Greek state, instead of helping them and teaching them the Greek language and the Pomak language, they force them to go to Muslim schools where they've been forced to learn the Turkish language, and they have nothing to do with Turkey.
Yeah.
They're nothing to do with Turkey.
Exactly. Why is a Pomak Muslim learning Turkish? Everybody in Greece should learn Greek, okay, at schools, especially in this Western Thrace area. They should learn Greek, all Muslims. But what is Turkey doing? Going to those schools, influencing them, sending their spies and sending their teachers or politicians and trying to, increase the sense of Turkish nationalism there, which is a big problem. I mean, because we know what this will lead to.
Of course.
Yeah.
The crazy thing that I think that the Turks are masters at it, and the Greeks are far behind the Turks, is that the Turks really expand their influence all over the region. I mean, now they found the Greek Muslims in Thrace, and they try to Turkify them. And we have so many crypto-Christians and crypto-Greeks in Asia Minor, and instead of supporting them and helping them, we just leave them alone. Same thing with southern Italy. We have so many Greeks there, and they are being left alone. The Greek state is totally
so true
useless.
What you said. Turkey, I mean, the people here are not ethnic Turks. They are Muslim, they're Greek Muslim, or they're Pomak Muslim, but Turkey is trying to Turkify them because we know what agenda they have there. But there are so many Greeks, Islamized Greeks in Asia Minor. There are so many Orthodox Greek Christians in Syria, in Egypt, and a lot of Greeks in, you said, Italy, and a lot of Greeks in many parts of the Middle East. But unfortunately, the Greek state isn't doing anything to help them, to help recover the Greek identity, the Hellenic culture there. Unfortunately, the Greek state has been very passive in that area.
The crazy part is that we have so many Christians, so many Greek Christians in Syria, and instead of supporting them, instead of sending them help, instead of giving them a help to stay in those grounds, the useless Greek government was taking pictures with their butcher, Jolani.
Yes, and these Christians in Syria, most of them are of Greek descent, and they love Greece so much. They honor Greece so much. They are descendants of the Byzantine Empire as well as Alexander the Great.
And they are killed for it. They are killed for it.
Yeah,
their love for Greece.
Yeah, they love Greece. They identify as Greek. They go to the Orthodox churches. But, instead of helping them, right now, I think the number one priority of the Greek foreign policy should be to help these people diplomatically, militarily, in terms of aid, economically. I think they all deserve their own administration there. If Al-Qaeda can have this administration in Damascus, there are Al-Qaeda members, there are ISIS members. Why don't Greek Syrian Christians, have their own administration in their own indigenous lands? Greece can do a lot to help them, and they should do everything in their power to help them. Because, like you said, Turks are just trying to Turkify everybody who is not even Turkish, imposing Islam on them, is imposing their own ideology and radicalizing them, whereas Greece is not doing anything to help people who are already Greek.
Well, I don't think this can happen when you have a Minister of Foreign Affairs, bowing down to Erdogan when he comes here.
Well, it's important to, if you are a sovereign government, if you are a sovereign state, you need to have your own independent foreign policy. In Syria, now there's another crisis in Egypt with the monastery, the oldest active monastery, Greek Orthodox monastery, which the government of Egypt is going to seize, according to a recent court ruling. We have this problem in Egypt. In Syria, the Syrian Christians are crying for help. They are calling for help. And they are looking to Greece for help. And in Turkey, like you mentioned, there are so many Islamized Greeks. They just need to look into a mirror, and they just need some education about history and Islam, to understand who they really are, instead of reaching out to these people in a respectful way, not by violating them, but just, telling them, are you sure you're really Turkic? Are you sure you're really Mongolian? I mean, this is about the identity of Turks, Turkish citizens, but it is something that will also transform Turkey in a major way. It's not just something, people tell me, a lot of people on Twitter, why does that matter? Like Turkish or Greek, like we feel Turkish, but you're not Turkish. And in the name of Turkishness, you have committed so many crimes.
It seems for Turkey it matters.
It matters so much who you really are. If you are not clear, if you're not truthful and honest about who you really are, you can't be honest about anything else. And you've been committing crimes even now against Armenia. They're trying to Turkify Armenia too. And 5 years ago, in 2002, they invaded Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, and they killed around 5,000 Armenians. They forcibly displaced all of them. Yeah. So it was another ethnic cleansing against Armenians. So no, understanding who you are and not committing any more crimes against Greeks and Armenians matters. And now in Syria, they're committing new crimes. They're using the Al-Qaeda terrorists there to commit their crimes against Christians, against the Druze, against the Alawites. So for the Turkish citizens, I don't want to call them Turks because they're not ethnic Turks, but for Turkish citizens to understand who they really are is very important. For the state of Greece to have its own sovereign, independent foreign policy is extremely important, because if you don't have that, you're not even a proper country, And Greece is the heartland of Europe. It is the heart of Western civilization. That's how Greeks should see themselves.
And we've been passed by a great heritage. Hellenism is one of the greatest culture ever existed on this planet. I don't think there is a culture that can match the Greeks today, or even the Greeks that we used to be in the past. So right now we have all of these people that they really embrace their identity, but they're very afraid because they know that they have a useless state, that it's not going to provide... I take it back.
You can say whatever. I'm not going to say useless. You can say whatever you want.
I will put the AI.
No.
She's telling us.
No, you can criticize them,
I saw you biting your lip, so I thought...
But of course you can, because you are the opposition, you should criticize them. Sorry, yes, continue.
Yeah, because they see that they have a useless state, that this useless state is not going to grant them the help that they need to embrace their culture, to go public and speak about their Greekness and embrace their religion and their past.
Greece, first of all, I think Greeks themselves, a lot of them don't understand what their civilization stands for. We're not talking about some average country. We're talking about a nation that created the world's greatest civilization, and that's an objective reality. I mean, since ancient times. First ancient Greece, then the Byzantine Eastern Roman Empire, the beauty they created, the democracy they created. I'm talking about ancient Greece. And when we look at the Byzantine Empire, the culture, the art, architecture, and the learning they promoted. I mean, all these centers of learning. And then in Smyrna, in Constantinople, Constantinople was the queen of all cities. You created all these great assets of civilization. Unfortunately, many of them fell to invaders, but here you still have this country and a lot of people that still belong to this civilization, like the Greeks of Syria, they're alive. So of course you should act with the responsibility that you represent this civilization. Okay, it's not an average, it's not a minor civilization. We're talking about a civilization, a nation that gave so much to humanity and that contributed so much to civilization. That's how I would expect the Hellenic Republic to act, because that's how we would honor our ancestors.
So we see all of this today Turkish series, but with a history that has always been Greek. We see Constantinople, we see Smyrna, we see Pondus. All of those regions, they were never Turkish. They were always Greek cities. So back in the history, the greatest times that these cities experienced were always under the Greeks. But we see in today's things that, you know, they try to alter the history. Back to what happened, we have back in 2012, we had the then Minister of Education, Repusi, that she tried to sweep the Greek books, and she said that in Smyrna they didn't throw us into the sea, but we fell into the sea because it was too congested by
too
people.
crowded.
Yeah, because it was too crowded.
Smyrna it was crowded. That's why we fell in the sea.
I don't even want to laugh because
all the traitors here.
What happened in Smyrna was a Holocaust. It was a genocide, and to talk about the victims like that, you know, I can't accept it. That is against historical facts. I don't understand why a Greek minister would say that. I completely disagree with her. And if they are saying these things that disrupt history or distort history, we need to be even louder when we speak about historical facts. And we know what happened in Smyrna. I mean, I can't believe a Greek politician would say that.
We have another minister that said that we are the children of the Ottomans. Dimitris Keridis.
It's the complete opposite. We Anatolians are the children of the Greeks. That's what he should say. You're not the children of the Ottomans. Ottomans were your occupiers. Ottomans were your colonizers. They were your oppressors. That's who they were. You suffered under their tyranny. What happened? What should be said is the people in Turkey, if he was a little more serious, that's what he should have said. Or in general, I'm talking like that's what we all should say, no matter who we are. The people in Turkey, we don't hate them. They're just victims of one of the most effective propaganda and brainwashing machines. And they don't know a lot of historical facts. They think they are Turks. They hate Greeks, but actually they are the children of Greeks. So we are the same people. A lot of people here tell me, oh, we have so much in common with Turks. I tell them, yes, because we are Greek too. It's not like Turks and Greeks are two separate nations who have a lot in common.
Yeah.
If we have all these things in common, it's because we are Greek too. That's where the commonality comes from.
I want to mention that the Turkish DNA project called for a boycott of ancestry.com.
Well, I did my DNA test on ancestry.com. It's a real DNA company, of course. You know, they're professionals. They are recognized by the international community, by the scientists. But who doesn't recognize them? Radical Turkish nationalists. They actually established some kind of website, turkishancestry.com. I mean, the amount of the level of denial, delusions.
It's fear.
It's fear, it's hatred, because, they've been fed with so many lies about Greeks. And in their imagination, they are this, they are the wonderful Turks. They are the children of the conquerors. And Greeks are their enemy. Greeks are, they call you a lot of names. But hey, what if they are Greek? What if their grandparents or their ancestors were Greek? They spoke Greek. They were Christian. It could be any amount, like 20%, 30%, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, doesn't matter. You have some Greek in you, Greek DNA. What does that mean? What does that make you when you hate Greeks so much? If they accept that, they will have to change their entire worldview.
Yeah, their mind would explode.
Yeah. I mean, they will have to change their worldview, their state policy, everything they believe in and everything they've been doing. They've had to do a lot of soul searching and self-criticism, and they have to come up and say, okay, we've been wrong. I mean, obviously we are Greek. And that would be wonderful, because whatever you are, you have to, the only thing we need to uphold is the truth, right? Truth, nothing but the truth. So if you are Greek, and of course do a DNA test, but if you can't afford that, just look into a mirror, like I said. Do you look like Mongolians or Turks? We don't look like them. Or do you look like Greeks? Some of them even say, no, Greeks are actually Turks. I mean, stop it. The level of, like I'm saying, the level of delusions, denial,
yeah.
all kinds of lies and excuses they come up with, they defy logic. But we need to keep pushing. We need to keep addressing this issue.
You know how many Greeks are saying that we are Turks?
Crazy.
Are you Mongolian?
We have been
These are not
raised,
serious people. These are not, I'm sorry, but...
Many people here have been raised to hate Greece for some reason.
Well, because you know what? There's a wonderful activist, Ayaan Hirsi Ali from Somalia. She now lives in the United States. She's a freedom activist, a human rights activist, an ex-Muslim. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what she said. You couldn't spit on freedom because you've never lost your freedom. But I was born in Somalia. I know what not having freedom means. So I don't have the luxury to spit on freedom. So I'm going to respond to them the same way. You can spit on Hellenism. You can hate who you are because you've never lost it. You grew up in freedom. You grew up in, luxury. You were never oppressed, persecuted, or threatened, pressured, intimidated by Ottomans or by Muslims. So you're not, we're Turks. Yeah, no, we're not Greek. I mean, just try to imagine living as dhimmis under a tyrannical Islamic regime, like an ISIS-like regime. How would you feel? Would Hellenism mean anything to you then? Of course it would. Of course you would say maybe in your mind, I wish we had some more freedom to, to uphold and respect our Hellenic identity, to help all the Greeks everywhere and to be more proud Greeks. No, it's about, they are globalists. They think that we're all the same, everyone around the world, it's just proletariat. We need to, these people live in an alternative reality,
Yeah,
okay? They look at what's happening in Syria, in Libya, in Iraq, in Sudan. How would you feel if you had to live there? So don't tell me all cultures are same. Cultures are very, very different. And Greek culture is one of the best. That's an objective fact. And they don't appreciate it because they've never lost it. Maybe they will start appreciating it and trying, understanding what it means when they lose it. But I'm afraid it will be too late then.
And the crazy thing is that they acknowledge a lot of things. For example, the Turks, they never really had a culture of their own. What are presenting as their culture today is what they inherited when they conquered the Byzantine Empire.
Yeah.
If you see one of the mosques that they're really proud of, the Blue Mosque, it's a copy of Hagia Sophia. We gave them their architecture. We gave them. It's ours. Their food, our food. It's
art, everything, yes.
Everything, yeah. It's what they stole from us. They have nothing on their own.
Well, some of them they stole, but some of them they already had because they were Greek, so it was part of their culture. But even after they became Muslim, they started practicing those cultural elements, like, the architecture, the food, the lifestyle, the language. I mean, a lot of words. Yeah, because they were Greek. And when you change your religion, you don't completely change your identity. A lot of things stay the same. You continue practicing them. You continue preserving them. That's why we have they say, we are so similar to Turks. No, Anatolian people are Islamized Greeks. That's why the Greeks here, the true Greeks, the Christian Greeks, are very similar to Anatolian Islamized Greeks. That's how we should word it, because that's what it is.
Do you think that the younger generations of Turkey may be more open to accepting the Greek or Armenian heritage that they may have?
I think there's a lot of hope for younger generations because, first of all, they're so frustrated with Erdogan's regime. They are so miserable and unhappy. And even the Diyanet, which is the state-funded Sunni Islamic institution, even they said, a lot of people are leaving Islam. They are becoming deists. They are becoming agnostics. They are becoming atheists. They are like a large number of people have left Islam. We have to do something about it. So the problem is, to them, it's a problem. To me, it's a miracle. So many Turkish citizens are leaving Islam, which makes them more open-minded. And I've seen a lot of cases, a lot of posts of Turkish citizens doing DNA test, posting their results, showing they are, Greek or Armenian or, non-Turkish identity. So, and some of them are shocked. Many of them are happy. Oh, so we're Greek. So yes, I see a lot of hope. I think there's hope for the cultural transformation of Anatolian people. And I think a big part of it is about religious transformation. It would be wonderful if they could, of course, willingly. We are not Muslim. We don't believe in forced conversions. But if they could become Christian, that would truly change the culture. That would give them a new heart and soul. And that is something that would truly transform Turkey.
Do you plan, or even can you visit your country, your old country, or your village?
I haven't been there for the past 10 years. I can't. I've been targeted by the Turkish government, by the Turkish press,
Whoa.
by Turkish nationalists. It wouldn't be safe for me to go. And this is the price I'm paying, That's why I keep talking about protecting Greece, because, it has problems. I'm not saying it's perfect, but at least we have free speech here, where you can practice your religion. You still speak the language of your ancestors. You still can practice your customs, your freedoms, your human rights, your constitution, everything. It matters so much. As someone who has lost that, my ability to go back to my country, as well as the real identity of my people, like my people in Turkey, in Pontus, in Asia Minor, they are Greek or Armenian or Assyrian or some other non-Turkic, community, but they're unaware of it. They're in denial. We have lost so much at the hands of Islam. Because I have experienced that, I don't want Greece to experience the same thing. And when people tell me, why do you care so much about Europe? Why do you care so much about Greece? I tell them, because if this Islamization is not stopped, I am your future. I can't go back to Turkey, but at least we have Greece here, this beautiful country. And that's why we have to protect it. That's why we can't, the border is open, let them all come in. No, we don't have that luxury. We have to protect. For thousands of years, your people, Greeks, have fought for this land. They have made so many sacrifices, all this hard work, blood and tears. For what? To preserve Hellenism, to preserve Orthodoxy. Now, are you going to give it away because you want to be welcoming to all these Islamic invaders? No. You have, of course, some domestic problems too, but as long as you keep your country as the land of the Greeks, you always have the potential and the ability to solve your problems as the Greek people. That's what you should protect, because I have lost that in Turkey. And when I talk about my Greek heritage, my Greek ethnic heritage, or my Greek ancestry, the people from Turkey who most likely have the same heritage and have the same ethnic background attack me. And if I go there, I won't even have safety. So I don't want Greeks to experience that. That's why we should do everything in our power to protect this beautiful, precious country.
Uzay, even though more than 100 years passed, the Turkish government still officially denies the genocide of the Pontic Greeks, as it does for the Armenian genocide. What do you think needs to happen for this genocide to be internationally recognized? Would it help, for example, if Greece and the diaspora pushed harder for other countries and institutions to officially recognize it? Is this, for you, a matter of historical justice?
Greece and the diaspora should absolutely advocate for the international recognition of the genocide everywhere, at the European Parliament, at the UN, and, in their embassies all around the world, at research centers. But before that, they should teach what happened during the genocide properly, truthfully, honestly, at their own Greek schools here. So international recognition for the genocide, it doesn't matter how much time has passed. It is very important. It's about historical justice. It's about ethics and morality. And it's about honoring the victims. They are not here with us anymore. They were murdered, they were deported, they suffered so much. But we have the ethical responsibility to be their representatives, to be their spokespeople and defenders, and let the whole world know what happened. You know, we should honor the victims. We should let the descendants that what happened to their ancestors will never be forgotten. It should be our national ethical responsibility.
Finally, Uzay, what message would you like to send to the Greek audience listening to this conversation? What would you like Greek patriots to understand about your struggle? Is there a lesson you want to share about the value of truth and memory?
Well, my first message is protect Greece. You have this ongoing open borders policy and mass Islamic migration / invasion, which I think is the country's most urgent problem. End this. Keep Greece as the land of the Greeks. You have already lost a lot of lands, a lot of your civilization, your historical capital of Constantinople. You have no more lands to lose. So this country is really precious. It must be preserved. So first, Greece first, protect this. And then we have our Greek brothers and sisters in Syria waiting, you know, for Greece to help them. This should be the priority of Greek patriots too. And then we have Islamized Greeks in Asia Minor, whom we should reach out to and help educate in a loving way, in an affectionate way, not because we hate them, but because we love them and we want them to understand the truth. And when it comes to my struggle, I'm in self-imposed exile and I've made a lot of sacrifices, but I think it's worth it because when I first started writing I didn't know anything about my Greek identity. My main motivation was my love for truth and justice, and I just wanted to help the innocent. I wanted to write about human rights abuses committed by Turkey. And of course, Hellenism matters. We need to understand what Greeks have given to the world, and we need to understand the fact that Hellenism is one of the world's most brilliant civilizations. If you ask me, it's the greatest civilization alive today. And that's how Greek patriots should act. And it's not just Greek patriots. We need to also, I think, try to help reach out to the left and show them that they don't have the luxury to lose this country. There's always somewhere else to go to unless there isn't. So you have only one country and you need to preserve it.
Uzay, we thank you very much for this conversation. I think the audience will love it. And I wish you all the best. Maybe in the future we can talk about more things.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
Giannis, thank you very much. You were very nice.
It was a lifetime experience to be here.
Perfect. I'm glad about it.
Thank you for your invitation, Andreas.
Αυτό ήταν άλλο ένα free mic. Ελπίζω να σας άρεσε. Κάντε like και subscribe. Και φυσικά μην ξεχνάτε ότι η σπόνσορας αυτής της εκπομπής είναι το Podcast for You. Το μοναδικό πλήρως οργανωμένο στούντιο στην Αθήνα για ενοικίαση. Ό,τι θέλετε να ζητήσετε, μπείτε στο link στην περιγραφή.